Well, good morning. I'm Keith Hudson, the president of the Flat River Historical Museum, and welcome to the Flat River Historical Museum. We're in the most historic spot in Greenville. This is right where John Green came in 1844, built his log cabin and sawmill, and the rest is history. So we're here to talk about Bert Silver, our movie entrepreneur. He often said at first he thought, I want to be a big man in a small town. And I thought that'd be better than a small man in a big town. But later on, he changed his mind because he had a big family to feed, and he would in some ways he regretted sticking with a small town just for an income part. But going back in history, we had where the movie theater used to stand next to the post office, a Phelps Opera House. And that is where the Phelps Opera House was. That is still behind this facade. Well, Bert Silver was, at 4 years old, he became an entertainer himself. His father had a family circus, they called it, but it wasn't really a circus as we think of it. They didn't have horses or high wire acts, but there's more of a family entertainment. They had a lot of songs, comedies, and Bert at the age of 4 was quite a singer. And he and his sister had a duet that they performed, and they traveled the country. They started off in New York, and eventually they made their way into Michigan as part of their tour. And in about 1998, they broke away from that and formed their own company. And he ended up settling in Michigan, over in Crystal, Michigan. And they traveled all over, so they wouldn't have to do a lot of long overnight stuff, but they had a traveling, they still called it a circus, and they did all family entertainment. And that was one of his things he insisted on. No drinking, no foul language. It was all going to be for family values, and that's what he prided himself on. And while he lived in Crystal, he also got into the movie industry by opening up. He purchased these Nickelodeons that started in about 1907, where for a nickel you could go in and you could turn a crank and watch a short movie. In the lower part of the First State Bank on the corner of Cass and Lafayette. He purchased that in 1909 and opened it up as a family theater. And then eventually, in 1915, the Phelps Opera House had been purchased by a man named Bates, and he started showing movies and called it the Bates Theater. So that was late 1914. They advertised in the Daily News, the Greenville Independent, it was a weekly newspaper, get my facts straight, in 1915. But on September 29th, Bert Silver bought the theater from Bates, changed the name to the Silvers Theater, and they opened up in early November. And he first advertised November 3rd of 1915. And they eventually, I think maybe that next year, they remodeled the front of the Phelps Opera House. It used to look more like a Quonset hut, kind of a curved shaped building. And that is still behind this building. But in 1935, they completely remodeled the theater in the Art Deco style that you see up here at night and then over here. When the movie theater first opened, they were silent films, but silent films were never really silent. They always had music. And very unusual for Greenville, they had an orchestra that played a half hour before the show, and also the music during the movie too. So and much of Bert Silver's family and his daughters played. We have a trumpet that belonged to Bert Silver. We have his hat here, and we have some posters. And actually we had 2 Greenville natives who starred in silent movies that were shown at the Silver Theater, Genevieve Hamper and Vivian Martin. Vivian Martin in particular was quite a headliner. She was a headline name for 45 silent films. And she was quite a well-known actress. And in 1918, the Movie Picture Magazine did a survey of who the most popular people were according to their readers. And they had nearly 1 million votes sent in. She was number 18, right behind Charlie Chaplin. He beat her by maybe 400 votes. So we have a lot of history of Greenville area people who made their career in Hollywood. So Bert Silver became a real fixture in Greenville. He was mayor for a number of years. He was on the president of the school board, on the 4-H fair. He was a quite an important person in town. And he just loved doing entertainment things like the Silver Theater. He lived over on Orange Street, right on the corner of Franklin and Orange. That house is still there. That was his family home when he eventually moved to Greenville. And he got out of the movie business in 1938. So soon, just 3 years after they remodeled to the present, or how it looked, as most people remember, he stayed 3 more years, and Butterfield Theaters bought them out. But his son-in-law, Bob Martin, continued to become the manager of the theater. And he also was the director of the orchestra, too. So, in fact, he gave all the music and the posters that they were kept in for folders to the museum. So we have a lot of silent movie posters from that era. And when he first opened up in 1915, the cost for tickets were 10 cents for adults, 5 cents for a child. And when World War I hit, they added a penny to that for the war tax.
Yeah.
All right, welcome to our mini Silver Theater. This project was first put in the 1990s, I believe. And before it was just another exhibit room that we had. So they tried to replicate, give you a miniature idea of what the Silver Theater was like. And here we show a lot of PowerPoint programs for our 3rd and 4th graders. At one time we also had a Silver Theater movie club that existed for a while. And they showed vintage movies like Gone with the Wind, things like that. Then they would discuss them afterward. So we have some remnants of the old Silver Theater that was torn down in 1988. So here we have, this came out of the Silver Theater. We have 2 of these. These are called plaster bulb casings. And we're going to electrify these and put them on the wall so they add lighting to our sconces that we already have. And we're under renovation. We're remodeling this entirely. The walls have just been painted, but the next step, and we're going to put in cove lighting, state-of-the-art projection, system, and a new state-of-the-art sound system too. So please come back when we have this completed. It's going to be mind-boggling. Another thing we're going to do, we filmed 5 characters from the past of Greenville, and we're projecting those on a scrim and a curved plexiglass tube. It'll look 3-dimensional and kind of ghost-like, but they'll be given a little 3-minute spiel about welcoming you to the museum and what there is to see, and a little bit about their life, including Bert Silver. So be sure and see that.